Alfred Kingsley stepped into the quiet chapel, head bowed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. The room smelled of lilies and sandalwood. He paused before the open casket where Yvette lay, perfectly still in her ivory dress, her hands folded over her chest. Alfred's throat felt tight, but he offered his face to the mourner's stoic grief, practiced sorrow. Behind him, Adrian Coulter hovered near the back row, shoulders squared and impatience flickering in her eyes. Alfred allowed the gallery of black-clad friends and family to believe his tears were real. He accepted bouquets of lilies and whispered condolences. He offered soft words, "Thank you for coming, she was the love of my life," his voice catching in all the right places. Yet every murmur of sympathy fed a secret thrill. Alfred's pulse raced at the thought of the $2.1 million life insurance waiting after the funeral. He greeted Mr. Langston, the Kingsleys' estate lawyer, with a solemn nod. "Mr." Langston handed him a folder containing preliminary documents for joint account transfers. Alfred tucked the folder under his arm, mind already racing ahead to celebrations with Adrian. The funeral director escorted guests outside, the organ's final notes fading. Alfred lingered, a heartbeat, fingertips brushing the polished wood of Yvette's casket. Alfred felt something heavy slip into his coat pocket, the small metal urn holding his wife's ashes. Outside, a gentle breeze stirred fallen petals. Alfred and Adrian slipped through a side exit toward Adrienne's waiting sedan. The driver opened the back door before Alfred could even think to knock. Adrian slid into the seat beside him. She gave him a conspiratorial smile. Alfred forced a soft sigh of sadness but let his heart leap at her presence. He offered her a tissue, then pocketed it when he saw her smirk. Alfred slid the urn aside, nodding at their escape plan: champagne in a hidden suite, luxury beyond mourning. Alfred and Adrian exchanged quick, defeated glances once they were inside the car. Adrian whispered, "Soon, all hers will be ours." Alfred gripped her hand, letting a thrill of victory wash through him. He nodded, eyes bright. Their world was about to shift. Leave your comments, perspectives, and lessons learned in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with friends. Alfred Kingsley returned to the chapel the next morning for the public viewing. The doors opened onto polished marble floors and pews already half filled with neighbors and distant cousins. Alfred approached Yvette's casket with measured steps, chest tight with false sorrow. He paused at her side, bowed his head, and let out a low, controlled sob. Aunts and uncles drifted by to press their hands to his arm, offering murmured condolences. Alfred leaned into each embrace, listening gratefully for their assurances. "I'm so sorry, she was such a gentle soul, let me know if you need anything." He allowed himself one inward smile at each whisper, proof that his act was flawless. Alfred's mind drifted to the ledger showing the insurance payout, a tidy sum of $2.1 million split neatly between life insurance and investments under Yvette's name. He pictured Adrian waiting in the car, how she would throw her head back laughing when she heard the total. Across the room, Nurse Carla Dawson hovered, fresh from the hospice. Her eyes, red-rimmed, tracked Alfred. She lifted a trembling hand in quiet greeting. Alfred swallowed and forced a sympathetic nod, though he had long since brushed away any guilt over Carla's messages to Yvette about Alfred's late-night absences. He let her pass, head bent. Mr. Langston arrived beside Alfred, carrying a fresh stack of paperwork. "We need your signature today to finalize the accounts," he said softly. Alfred nodded, glancing at the lines of mourners. He clasped the pen like a ceremonial scepter, signing without a glance at the text. Each sweep of ink felt like progress toward freedom, toward Adrienne's embrace. After signing, Alfred lingered a moment, touching Yvette's cold hand under the glass. "Goodbye, love," he whispered. He rose, squared his shoulders, and exited through a side door. Outside, sunlight felt sharp against his face. Alfred mounted the steps with practiced solemnity, scanning the street for Adrienne's car. Adrienne Coulter's black sedan purred down empty avenues toward the city's edge. Alfred Kingsley leaned back in the plush leather seat, releasing a breath he had been holding for days. Adrienne turned to him, eyes glittering with excitement and vindication. "We did it," she said, voice low but triumphant. She reached for a silver ice bucket on the floorboard and pulled out 2 crystal flutes and a chilled bottle of champagne. Alfred watched her pop the cork with a soft pop that echoed in the cabin. He took his flute, amber bubbles rising in the glass. "To new beginnings," Adrienne toasted. Alfred met her gaze and clinked his glass against hers. He sipped, savoring a taste sweeter than any victory could deserve. They spoke in excited whispers, planning their escape to Paris, then Bali, then anywhere Yvette's memory couldn't reach them. Alfred described the beachfront villa they would buy. Adrienne sketched in the air where her office in their new penthouse would sit. They laughed, conspiratorial and free, as the car glided past empty storefronts. Adrienne laid her head on Alfred's shoulder, and he allowed a soft sigh of contentment. No longer was he bound by guilt or grief. He had orchestrated the perfect plan: funeral, signing, celebration. The urn rested in the corner, a silent trophy. Alfred felt his chest tighten at the image. He forced a swallow and a nod. Adrienne's driver peeled off onto a quiet side road leading to a private suite. Alfred watched through the window as city buildings vanished behind them. He and Adrienne exchanged a final glance of shared triumph. This was only the beginning of their freedom and their fortune. Alfred Kingsley walked into Mr. Langston's oak-lined office, feeling the weight of that heavy binder under his arm. He shut the door behind him and spotted his lawyer sitting behind a grand desk, papers neatly spread out. Alfred took a seat opposite Mr. Langston, who peered over his glasses and gave him a knowing nod. "Alfred," Mr. Langston began, voice gentle, "we've reviewed Yvette's final instructions. There are joint accounts to transfer and assigned life insurance distribution. Everything's in this binder." He tapped the thick stack with a slender pen. Alfred opened the binder and skimmed the headings: joint bank account, life insurance beneficiaries, real property. He felt a thrill when he saw the $2.1 million figure laid out in clean columns. Adrienne Coulter leaned back in her chair beside him, arms crossed, a small smile playing on her lips. She whispered, "Looks just like we planned." Alfred nodded, heart pounding. Mr. Langston flipped to a section titled Final Review. "You'll need to sign these documents at the bank," he said, sliding a set of forms across the desk. "The bank will verify Yvette's medical declarations and your signatures. After that, the transfers happen immediately." Alfred picked up a pen and traced the first line of the beneficiary form, careful not to tremble. Adrienne's phone buzzed. She checked it quickly, then tucked it away with a satisfied grin. Alfred asked, "Everything okay?" Adrienne leaned close. "Just confirmation from the driver. He's waiting outside." Alfred felt a surge of excitement. Soon they'd have the money and be gone. Mr. Langston let his pen hover over the last sheet. "After you sign here, you'll have full access to the accounts," he said. "But remember, these papers are final. You can't reverse them." Yvette wanted this handled immediately. Alfred swallowed. He glanced at Adrienne, then back at the forms. He signed each one in a single smooth motion, sealing their future. When the last signature was dry, Alfred closed the binder and exhaled. Mr. Langston collected the papers, sliding them into a secured envelope. "I'll take these to the bank myself later today," he said. Alfred nodded, relief flooding him. As he stood, he felt like a man carrying the world in his pockets. Together with Adrienne, he was ready for the next step. Alfred Kingsley and Adrienne Coulter climbed into the black sedan outside Mr. Langston's office. The car idled, its engine humming softly. Adrienne turned from the back seat with that familiar spark in her eyes. "Ready for the final move?" she asked. Alfred nodded, smoothing his tie. He felt pride roll through him. Only one stop remained before freedom. They drove through downtown streets toward Chesapeake National Bank. Alfred watched familiar landmarks blur past the window. The old theater marquee, the coffee shop where he and Yvette used to meet, now closed. He felt a pang but shoved it aside. Adrian squeezed his hand, her voice low. After today, it's just you, me, and our new life. Alfred offered her a small, tight smile. The driver pulled up to the bank's executive entrance. A doorman opened the back door for them. Alfred stepped onto marble floors and looked up at brass lettering, Chesapeake National Bank. He took a steadying breath and led Adrian past polished columns toward a silent reception desk. A receptionist offered a polite nod but didn't speak. Alfred handed his ID and explained the appointment. Moments later, Vivian Harper, senior branch manager, appeared. She wore a crisp navy suit and a warm, professional smile. "Mr. Kingsley, Ms. Coulter, welcome," she said, motioning them toward a private elevator. Vivian's handshake felt firm and courteous. Alfred sensed nothing but courtesy, exactly what he wanted. In the elevator, Adrian whispered, "Just a few minutes more." Alfred's pulse thrummed in his ears. He pictured the trustee documents going through, the wealth shifting into their names forever. He imagined evenings in Paris, mornings on a private beach. Soon, all of it would be real. The elevator doors slid open to a quiet hallway. Alfred followed Vivian down the carpeted corridor to a glass conference room. He noted the security cameras in the corners and the keypad at the door. Adrian slipped inside ahead of him. Alfred entered next, heart racing. As the door clicked shut, he settled into a leather chair, certain this was the last formality before everything changed. Alfred Kingsley took a seat in the plush conference room, his binder of signed wills resting on his lap. Adrian Coulter sat beside him, shoulders squared, her lips curling into a triumphant smile. Alfred glanced at his reflection in the glass table surface, adjusting his tie. He felt both nerves and excitement pulsing through him. Moments later, Vivian Harper entered, followed by a uniformed security officer carrying a tablet. Vivian closed the conference room door behind her. The air felt thick with anticipation. Alfred cleared his throat. "Thank you for seeing us, Ms. Harper," he said. His voice was steady, practiced. Vivian nodded. "Mr. Kingsley, this is the final verification step. I'll need you both to confirm your identities and Yvette Kingsley's instructions one more time." She turned to the security officer. "Please begin." The officer tapped a screen and swiped Alfred's ID. Alfred watched, trying not to let his fingers shake. Adrian leaned in, whispering, "Just say yes." Alfred nodded. When the officer finished, Vivian picked up the sealed envelope from Mr. Langston. "These are the trust documents," she explained. "Once I countersign, the assets will transfer into the beneficiary's trust." Alfred's heart sped up. Adrienne's eyes glittered. Vivian paused, then smiled. "All set." She signed at the bottom of the page, then slid the document to Alfred. He gripped the pen and signed his name, each stroke echoing in the quiet room. Adrian signed next, her hand sure and confident. Vivian collected all the papers, stamping them with the bank's seal. She placed them into a folder and handed it to Alfred. "Congratulations, Mr. Kingsley. The trust is now active." Alfred exhaled, a slow smile spreading across his face. He looked at Adrian, who reached over to squeeze his hand. They rose, ready to leave the room and Yvette's legacy behind. Alfred felt light, as if he'd shed a heavy coat. He and Adrian walked past the bank officer, stepping out into the bright lobby. Outside, the city beckoned, full of promise. Alfred's dream was finally at hand. Vivian Harper stood in the doorway of the conference room, offering Alfred Kingsley and Adrian Coulter a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She extended her hand first to Alfred. "Mr. Kingsley," she said, her voice smooth and professional. Alfred rose and shook her hand, noting the firmness of her grip. "Thank you for having us," he replied, keeping his tone respectful. Vivian's eyes flicked to Adrian next, who returned the gesture with equal poise. Vivian stepped aside to reveal a polished glass table surrounded by high-backed leather chairs. She gestured toward the chairs. "Please have a seat. I hope your day has been going well so far." Alfred and Adrian eased into their seats, Adrian reaching instinctively for Alfred's hand before letting go and settling into her own chair. Alfred set the sealed envelope from Mr. Langston down, arranging it carefully on the table. Vivian crossed her arms briefly before sitting at the head of the table. She placed a folder of documents before her and tapped its top. "I've reviewed Ms. Kingsley's file and everything is in order for the trust activation. Before we proceed, I want to confirm a few details and answer any questions you might have." Alfred nodded, feigning gratitude. "No questions from our side, Ms. Harper. We've reviewed the documents thoroughly with Mr. Langston." Adrian offered a polite smile. Vivian opened the folder and extracted a page marked Final Beneficiaries. She slid it across the table to Alfred. "Here are the beneficiary designations for the joint accounts, the real property, and the life insurance payout. Please verify that these match your understanding." Alfred glanced down, eyes skimming the list, joint account in his name and Adrienne's, the manor house in Adrienne's name, and 100% of the insurance payments split equally. He nodded firmly. "Exactly as we discussed." Vivian marked her place with a paperclip and looked up. "Very good. Once the signatures are complete, these assets will transfer immediately. Then all remaining trust assets will vest under the terms of Yvette Kingsley's final will." Adrian leaned forward, pressing her fingers together. "We understand," she said, voice soft but eager. Vivian inclined her head and tapped her pen on the table. "Then let's proceed." She handed a pen to Alfred first, the metal glinting under the recessed lights. Alfred's heart shuddered at the sight. This pen was their last tool, the final step in a scheme months in the making. He took it, exhaled slowly, and prepared to sign away Yvette's legacy forever. The conference room felt colder once the door clicked shut behind them. Alfred Kingsley tightened his grip on the pen, watching Adrian Coulter feature a triumphant gleam in her eyes. Vivian Harper slid the final set of documents across the table, trust declaration forms, asset transfer notices, and a last-page affidavit. "These require your signatures," Vivian said. Alfred nodded without looking up, bracing his elbow on the table. Adrian reached for the first affidavit. As she signed, Alfred's mind raced through every detail of their plan, the forged medical reports, the whispered conversations with Nurse Carla Dawson, the careful positioning of Jasmine Sinclair's absence. Alfred dipped the pen again and traced his name, each letter pressing firmly into the paper. He felt the reassuring weight of the pen's brass barrel, a weight that confirmed his advancement toward freedom. Vivian watched silently, clipboard in her lap, as Alfred and Adrian moved through the pages. The only sounds were the scratch of pen on paper and the ticking of a wall clock hidden behind the blinds. Adrian finished her last signature ahead of Alfred, and he caught her brief smile. He cleared his throat. "All done," he said. Vivian gathered the signed documents, organizing them back into the folder. She snapped it shut and stamped it with a crisp, trust-active seal. The sound of the stamp echoed louder in the hushed room than Alfred expected. Adrian's chest rose and fell with shallow excitement. Alfred exhaled more deeply than he realized, relief and anticipation mingling. Vivian rose from her seat and crossed to the sideboard, pulling out a small wooden box. She carried it back to the table, setting it between Alfred and Adrian. "Inside this box you will find the countersigned copies of the trust documents," she explained. Alfred opened the box with careful fingers, revealing the papers printed on thick, cream-colored stock. He lifted one, eyes dancing over his own signature reproduced below Vivian's. He nodded approvingly. Adrian leaned forward, picking up another copy. "Thank you, Ms. Harper," she said. "This means everything to us." Alfred echoed the sentiment, though his voice wavered with eager triumph. Vivian offered another measured smile. "Congratulations," she said. "Everything is official now." She gestured toward the door. "If there's nothing else, you're free to go." Alfred and Adrian exchanged a look of quiet victory, gathered their papers, and stood. Alfred clicked the box closed and tucked the folder under his arm, feeling the swell of wind at the door as they left. The room felt emptier when they stepped into the hallway, like the weight of Yvette's will had already lifted from their shoulders. Alfred Kingsley and Adrian Coulter stepped into the hallway, the bright lobby lights momentarily blinding them. They hadn't expected anyone else, but as they rounded the corner, a slender assistant in a crisp suit approached them. "Miss Harper asked me to deliver this to you," the assistant said, handing Adrian a slim tablet. "She said it's urgent." Adrian frowned, turning it over in her hand. The screen lit up automatically. At first, there was static, then Yvette Kingsley's face appeared. Alfred's throat went dry. Yvette's eyes were fierce, her expression unreadable. "Hello, Alfred," she began, her voice calm but cold. Adrian gasped and stepped back, clutching the tablet like a shield. Alfred stiffened, every nerve in his body coming alive. "Don't look so surprised," Yvette continued. The video flickered as she sat down at her own desk, wedding ring glinting under the lamp. "You thought you could outsmart me. You and Adrian believed you had me fooled." Adrienne's mouth opened in shock, but she said nothing. Alfred's heart hammered. Yvette leaned forward. "Carla's texts show everything. Your late-night escapes, your whispered promises." The screen flashed images. Adrienne's driver waiting, Alfred walking hand in hand with Adrian, Nurse Carla's message logs. Adrienne's face went pale. Alfred swallowed hard. Yvette's voice grew stronger. "I changed my will. I moved every asset into a trust for my daughter, Jasmine Sinclair." The video cut to a fresh set of documents with Jasmine's name bold at the top. "No matter what you sign today, husband," Yvette said, eyes narrowing, "you get a token sum $17,654 and nothing more." Adrian cried out. Alfred staggered back, hand on the wall. Yvette's image faded, replaced by Jasmine herself on the screen wearing her mother's wedding ring. Jasmine's gaze locked onto Alfred. "Hello, Mr. Kingsley," she said. Adrian stared at the dark tablet, their scheme unraveling in cold pixels. They realized, too late, that Yvette's final twist had already been delivered and justice was waiting just around the corner. Yvette's face filled the screen again. This time, her eyes were fierce, unwavering as she spoke. Alfred Kingsley leaned against the wall, shaking slightly. Adrian Coulter sank to the floor, hands pressed to her temples. Yvette's voice echoed down the silent hallway. "I saw the texts, Alfred," she said. "Carla sent me every message you ever sent Adrian." The video cut to a simple chat window. Nurse Carla Dawson's name appeared on the left. On the right were lines of text. "Carla Dawson, he's on his way again." "Adrian, perfect. See you at the hotel." "Carla Dawson, he left Yvette's side 10 minutes ago." "Adrian, don't let him slip away." Alfred grimaced. He remembered sending those texts. He remembered Carla tapping out each word in the dark of the hospice room, warning Yvette that her husband was sneaking off. He had thought she was protecting his secret, not broadcasting it. He had no clue Yvette would use every word against him. Yvette's face returned on the screen. "You thought those messages were private. You thought I was too weak to act. You thought you'd outlast me." She paused, letting the words sink in. Adrian covered her mouth, eyes wide. Alfred felt his cheeks burn. Yvette continued, "I knew everything. Your lies, your travel plans, your late-night rendezvous. I watched you with Adrian through every text." The screen showed a map of Alfred's secret trips. Weekend getaways, hotel stays, flights booked under fake names. The images flickered in and out, each destination more damning than the last. Adrian didn't cry, they never caught her like this. She just stared, as if she'd stopped believing in her own life. Alfred closed his eyes, leaning harder against the wall. He tasted bitter regret for every moment he'd cheated on Yvette. He felt raw shame that he'd played a woman he once claimed to love. Yvette's final act wasn't just about money. It was a reckoning. Yvette's voice softened, but her eyes remained sharp. I set this trap so no one would take what I fought to build. Not even you. The screen went dark, leaving Alfred and Adrian bathed in the glow of the bank's corridor lights. They realized that their plot had spun them into Yvette's final twist, and there was no turning back. The tablet lit up again, this time with footage from Yvette's personal camera. The angle was shaky at first, as if filmed by someone trying not to be seen. The video cut to Alfred slinking into a downtown hotel lobby at night. Adrienne's hand appeared in the frame, pulling Alfred behind a pillar. Alfred's voice whispered, "Are you sure no one saw us?" Adrienne laughed quietly and nodded. Next clip. Alfred and Adrienne at a seaside cottage. They stood on a porch overlooking the ocean. He kissed her cheek and traced her silhouette in the fading light. Adrienne smiled broadly. Alfred wrapped an arm around her waist. He leaned in to whisper plans for the future he'd stolen from Yvette. The footage jumped. Now they were at a private airport hangar. Alfred fumbled with a passport under a flickering bulb. "Make sure they don't catch our real names," he said. Adrienne checked a boarding pass. "Don't worry," she answered, "I've got it all." Each scene played out like proof of guilt. Adrienne's driver appeared on camera, opening the car door at late hours. Alfred climbed in, coat collar turned up. Adrienne slipped into the passenger seat, offering a conspiratorial smile. The video captured Alfred's dark delight as they sped away into night. Yvette's voice overlaid the footage. "You thought money would buy you happiness. You thought you'd outrun me." Alfred stared at the screen. He felt hollow as each memory replayed. He wondered if Adrienne felt the same sting of betrayal she'd inflicted on Yvette. Adrienne didn't speak. She just watched their lives, stripped bare by Yvette's camera. The final clip showed Alfred and Adrienne fist-pumping as a suitcase full of cash slid across a hotel desk. They laughed, unaware of the world outside that awaited them. Yvette's camera had caught it all, every step of their betrayal. Every clip ended with Yvette's message. "You lost. I always win." When the video ended, the hallway lights seemed too bright. Alfred sagged, the weight of his actions settling like stone in his chest. Adrienne rose first, shaking her head. The evidence reel had sealed their fate. Yvette had laid it all bare. The corridor door hissed open. Alfred and Adrienne spun around, eyes wide. Jasmine Sinclair stepped forward, wearing Yvette's wedding ring on her left hand. She looked young, about 23, yet her gaze was calm and steady. The jade-green ring caught the overhead light, glinting like a promise. "Hello, Mr. Kingsley," Jasmine said in a clear voice. "Hello, Miss Coulter." She closed the door behind her. Adrienne's mouth fell open. Alfred swallowed and managed a shaky, "You're Jasmine?" Jasmine nodded. "I'm her daughter." She paused, letting that sink in. "Yvette told you I existed. She told you I'd come for what's mine." Alfred's eyes dropped to the tablet in his limp hand. Jasmine took a step closer, eyes never leaving his face. "All the assets are in my name now. Everything: house, bank accounts, insurance. I'm the sole trustee." Adrienne backed away, hand over her mouth. Jasmine kept her voice soft but firm. "You signed papers today. You thought you'd get it all. But Yvette changed her will months ago. She moved her entire estate into the Jasmine Sinclair Trust." Jasmine unclasped a folder she carried. She flipped it open to show legal documents. Trust deeds, bank filings, insurance forms. All stamped and signed. Alfred's breath caught. He'd signed his name to those papers, but not to Jasmine's trust. He searched for ways to object, to find a loophole, but there were none. Every signature had been witnessed, notarized, and filed. Jasmine slid the folder across the table toward Alfred. "This is your token sum," she said, tapping the page that granted him $17,654. "That's all Yvette left you." Adrian sank to the floor in shock, tears pooling in her eyes. Alfred stared at the figure, disbelief twisting his gut. Jasmine folded her arms. "I'll be handling everything from here." She turned to Vivian Harper as the branch manager stepped back into the hallway. Jasmine offered Vivian a slight nod. Vivian unlocked the conference room door. Jasmine led the way out, her ring lighting her path. Alfred and Adrian watched her go, the echo of each footstep driving home the truth. Yvette had won from beyond the grave. The last twist had arrived, and justice had been served in the most perfect way. Jasmine Sinclair stood in the center of the conference room, documents spread on the table before her. Jasmine looked from Alfred Kingsley's stunned face to Adrian Coulter's wide eyes. Jasmine lifted a sheet and cleared her throat. "Here's how Yvette Kingsley planned everything." Jasmine pointed to a family tree diagram. At the top, Yvette Kingsley's name appeared, with a branch leading to Jasmine Sinclair, her long-lost daughter. Yvette Kingsley had kept Jasmine's existence hidden from Alfred Kingsley and Adrian Coulter until the very end. Jasmine tapped another line on the diagram. "On this date, April 12, 2001, Yvette gave birth to me. She couldn't keep me because of her illness. She arranged for my adoption through a private agency. She never forgot me." Alfred shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Adrian's jaw dropped. Jasmine unfolded a yellowed letter dated July 15, 2003, addressed simply to "My dear daughter." Yvette Kingsley's elegant handwriting filled nearly an entire page. Jasmine read aloud, "My dearest Jasmine, if you ever find this letter, know that I love you more than life itself. I hope you have a happy family. Someday I will find you." Jasmine held up the letter for Alfred and Adrian to see. Jasmine explained that Yvette Kingsley had spent years tracing adoption records, contacting agencies, even employing a private investigator. Jasmine described how Yvette Kingsley had insisted on meeting only after Jasmine turned 18, giving her time to grow before disrupting her life. Jasmine looked Alfred in the eye. "Yvette Kingsley flew into Lagos on my 20th birthday. She met me at a cafe under a pseudonym. She told me who I was. She offered to adopt me officially if I wished. I asked to know just how she left me to die alone. But I also needed her. She apologized and said she'd make it right." Adrian lowered her gaze. Alfred's protest lodged in his throat. Jasmine continued, "Over the past 3 years, Yvette Kingsley and I built our relationship in secret. I visited her every month in Lagos's hospice. We planned how to protect her assets from anyone who'd betray her. Yvette Kingsley taught me about trust law, wills, banking, everything." Jasmine stood, smoothing her skirt. "I'm the reason these documents exist." Yvette Kingsley moved every asset into the Jasmine Sinclair Trust 6 weeks ago. She recorded the video you saw. She knew you'd try to steal from her. She knew exactly who she was protecting. Alfred looked at Jasmine's ring, the same wedding band Yvette Kingsley once wore. Jasmine lifted her hand so that the ring caught the light. "Yvette Kingsley's love for me didn't end when she gave birth. It only grew stronger. She taught me to fight for her legacy." Alfred swallowed hard. He realized that every secret he'd kept, every betrayal he'd orchestrated, had been seen and countered by Yvette Kingsley. And by Jasmine Sinclair, the daughter he never knew existed. Vivian Harper watched Alfred Kingsley's face contort with disbelief as Jasmine Sinclair laid out Yvette Kingsley's final legal masterstroke. Vivian unfolded a thick packet of papers entitled Amendment to Prenuptial Agreement and Revised Beneficiary Designations. Vivian slid the packet across the glass table to Alfred. Here are the updated agreements Yvette Kingsley signed 2 months ago, Vivian explained. Alfred reached for the top sheet and saw his name in bold letters, alongside a line stating that his spousal rights would be overridden under certain circumstances. Circumstances that Yvette Kingsley had just invoked. Alfred flipped to the section marked Clause 17, Spousal Forfeiture. The clause read that if Alfred Kingsley betrayed Yvette Kingsley or engaged in any extramarital relationship, he would forfeit all rights to her estate. Alfred's breath hitched. Adrian Coulter glanced at the sheet and shook her head slowly. Vivian continued. Yvette Kingsley added an addendum specifying that any attempt to claim financial benefits contrary to her documented wishes would result in immediate disinheritance. Alfred's fingers trembled as he held the paper. He muttered, "I never saw this." Vivian's voice remained calm. Yvette Kingsley signed these with 2 witnesses. The notary's seal is here. Vivian flipped to the next page, a bank filing showing that the prenuptial amendment had been registered with the county courthouse. Yvette Kingsley had arranged to notify Alfred Kingsley of the amendment by registered mail. Alfred blinked at the date, March 3, 2025, just 6 weeks before Yvette Kingsley's passing. Alfred's head snapped up. I never received anything. Adrienne's nails dug into the table's edge. Vivian slid a copy of the registered mail receipt across the table. "This was signed for at your office address," she said. Alfred stared at the signature, his own. Vivian tapped another document. "These are the revised beneficiary designations for the life insurance policy. Yvette Kingsley named Jasmine Sinclair as sole beneficiary. She rescinded any designation for you, Mr. Kingsley, and for Ms. Coulter." Alfred looked at Adrian. Adrienne's eyes filled with tears. Alfred dropped the papers. "This can't be legal," he whispered. Vivian shook her head. "Everything's valid." Yvette Kingsley planned for every contingency. She covered every legal angle. Alfred swallowed, heart pounding. He groped for words, but the documents in front of him spoke louder. His plan had been anticipated, his every move countered by a wife who refused to be outwitted even in death. Alfred Kingsley stood abruptly, shoving his chair back so hard it scraped against the marble floor. Alfred's breath came in short gasps. "This is a fraud." Alfred's voice echoed off the bank's high ceilings. Adrian Coulter pressed her palm to her forehead. Vivian Harper raised a finger as if to hush him. Jasmine Sinclair's expression remained unreadable. Alfred stormed across the room, pointing at the amendment papers on the table. "This isn't what Yvette wanted. She loved me. She promised." Alfred choked on the word promise. Adrian reached out to steady him, but he brushed her away. Alfred's voice grew louder. "These documents are forged. You can't prove this is her signature." Jasmine stood and walked toward Alfred deliberately. "Your denial was part of her plan," Jasmine said softly. "Yvette Kingsley anticipated your lies. She had her lawyer, Mr. Langston, notarize these amendments in front of 2 witnesses. She recorded your signature on the registered mail receipt." Alfred's fists clenched. He balled his hand into the folder and crumpled the sheets. "I'm her husband," he shouted. "I deserve what she left me. You can't do this." Vivian stepped forward, her posture stern. "Mr. Kingsley." Yvette Kingsley exercised her legal right to amend her prenuptial agreement and her will. "You agreed to those changes when you signed the original prenup 10 years ago. Clause 17 is valid under state law." Alfred's heart pounded so loud he feared it would burst. He stalked toward Vivian, voice shaking with desperation. "I want to see the notary. I want to see Mr. Langston. I want to contest this right now." Jasmine placed a gentle hand on Alfred's arm. Alfred recoiled as if burned. Jasmine's voice stayed calm. "You can contact Mr. Langston's office, but you'll see the same sealed documents we have here. You have no legal recourse." Adrian sank to her knees, tears slipping down her cheeks. Alfred looked at Adrian, then back at Jasmine and Vivian. He realized that every argument, every denial could not change the sealed truth before him. Alfred's denial faltered. His shoulders slumped. The last vestiges of his protest washed away as he accepted the reality. Yvette Kingsley had won. His wife had outmaneuvered him completely, leaving him powerless. The hallway lights felt harsher when the tablet buzzed to life again. Alfred Kingsley and Adrian Coulter froze as Yvette's calm face appeared one more time. She sat poised at her desk, the wedding ring glinting on her finger. "Alfred," she said softly, "you betrayed me. But I am not cruel." Her lips curved into a kind, sad smile. Alfred's heart thudded in his chest. Yvette held up a sheet of paper printed on heavy parchment. She tapped it with a slender finger. "This document names the one and only payment you will receive." She paused as the camera zoomed in on the bold number typed below her signature, $17,654. Alfred's breath caught. Adrian gasped beside him, stumbling back against the wall. Yvette's voice stayed gentle. "I feel a measure of compassion," she continued. "I will not leave you destitute. You may take $17,654 to cover immediate expenses and a small token of my love. This amount is final." Alfred's face went pale. He thought of the $2.1 million he had counted on, then stared at the fraction of that sum shimmering on screen. Adrian sank to her knees, pressing her palms into her face. Alfred's knees buckled and he lowered himself beside her. His mind raced. How could Yvette reduce him to this? How could Adrian's plans collapse so completely? Yvette leaned forward, gaze steady. "Use that money to rebuild your life somewhere far away. But know this is all you will ever get. Everything else belongs to Jasmine Sinclair." The screen cut to black. Silence swallowed them. Adrian's tears made tracks down her cheeks. Alfred pressed a hand to his mouth, his mind replaying every moment he had believed in victory. He thought of the beachfront villa, the Paris flights, the champagne and hidden suites, and realized that none of it would ever be his. He and Adrian stayed on the floor long after the tablet shut off. Their dreams lay in pieces around the corridor like broken glass. Alfred's chest tightened with humiliation and regret. He had been given a pittance and a lesson in betrayal. Across the hall, the elevator chimed, but neither of them moved. Eventually, Adrian rose and fled down the corridor, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Alfred sat alone, staring at the cold marble floor, cradling the weight of $17,654 and the memory of everything he had lost. Alfred Kingsley propped himself against the wall, digging his fingers into the cool stone. He closed his eyes, willing the world to reset. Instead, the tablet buzzed again. Yvette's face filled the screen for one last message. Alfred's breath hitched. "Alfred," Yvette began, her voice steady but with a hint of steel. "I want you to understand what comes next." She paused, letting him feel the silence. Alfred swallowed hard, dreading the words. Yvette's eyes bore into his. "My daughter, Jasmine, knows everything you did. She saw your betrayal. She knows the lies, the hidden trips, the midnight texts." The video cut to Jasmine holding one of Alfred's personal journals, leafing through pages filled with Alfred's own handwriting. Alfred pressed his hands over his eyes, wishing he could erase every entry. Yvette's voice continued over the images. "Jasmine will oversee the trust. She will see to it that nothing is misused, nothing is taken without her knowledge. You have no chance to plead, no avenue to cheat. Jasmine is prepared for every move you could make." Alfred's stomach churned. He realized that even his smallest slip would be spotted. The video returned to Yvette's face. Her expression was firm but not cruel. "I forgive you in my own way," she said. "But justice must be served. Jasmine will protect my legacy and she will not hesitate to enforce the terms I set." Alfred felt tears sting his eyes, but he swallowed them down. Yvette leaned closer to the camera. Let this be a final warning. Do not try to contact anyone connected to this trust. Do not seek to influence Jasmine or any trustee. To do so is to break my final command, and she will act swiftly. She lifted her hand and touched the wedding ring on her finger. I love you, Alfred, but you broke my heart. Now I entrust everything to our daughter. The screen faded to black again. Alfred stood in silence, the words ringing in his ears. He had been given a token sum and a warning. Jasmine watched him, ready to strike if he dared to move against the trust. His future hung on a thin thread, and Yvette's voice had cut it shorter than he had ever expected. A soft click echoed down the hallway as the conference room door opened. Alfred Kingsley looked up, heart pounding. Jasmine Sinclair stepped into the light, her posture calm and assured. She still wore Yvette's wedding ring, the same one that had glinted in every video. Jasmine's gaze met Alfred's. He felt small under her steady stare. She held a slim folder in one hand, a copy of the trust agreement. Jasmine offered a polite nod. Mr. Kingsley, she said in her clear, steady voice, I believe you have received your final warning. Alfred managed a rasp of a reply. Yes, he swallowed. I understand. Jasmine closed the gap between them. Her ear. I wanted to meet you in person, she said. My mother valued respect even for those who wronged her. Alfred's throat went dry. Adrian Coulter appeared behind Alfred, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. She backed away as Jasmine spoke. Jasmine addressed Adrian too. Ms. Coulter, I trust you've reviewed the terms of the trust. Adrian could only nod. Jasmine turned back to Alfred. I know you believed you could outsmart Mother and me, she said. But she always planned ahead. I'm here now to carry on her wishes. She tapped the ring on her finger. This ring is more than a token. It's proof of my authority. Alfred's voice quavered. I respect your position. Jasmine's lips curved into a small, sad smile. I'm not your enemy, she said softly, but I will protect my mother's legacy without hesitation. You will find that cooperation is in your best interest. Jasmine stepped aside, motioning toward the end of the corridor where a bank officer waited. Shall we finalize the formalities? She asked. Alfred bowed his head and followed her steps, each footfall heavy with regret. Adrian lingered at the door, unsure where to go. Jasmine offered her a brief nod of acknowledgement. As they disappeared down the hallway, Alfred glanced back once. Jasmine stood firm, ring gleaming, folder clasped to her chest. In that moment, he knew Yvette's final twist was complete, and he was powerless to change a destiny written long before his betrayal. Adrian Coulter's heart pounded as she followed Jasmine Sinclair and Alfred Kingsley down the marble hallway. Every step echoed like the tolling of a distant bell. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering, not from cold, but from dread. Jasmine led them back into the private conference room, the same place where Alfred and Adrian had once tasted victory. Now, the air felt heavy and hollow. Vivian Harper met them at the door, her polite smile gone, replaced by a look of knowing finality. Behind her, two bank officers hovered, ready to escort Alfred to the record-keeping vault. Adrian watched as the vault door slid open, revealing row after row of empty shelves and locked safety boxes, empty because Yvette had already withdrawn every asset. Adrian's breath caught in her throat. She whispered, Alfred, what happened? Alfred stood motionless, eyes fixed on the dark cubbies where their future had once waited. His jaw clenched, knuckles white around the folder Jasmine had handed him. Adrian edged closer, voice trembling. I thought we signed everything. I thought the money was ours. Jasmine nodded at Vivian, who produced a small, clear envelope. Inside lay a single check for $17,654 and a note bearing Yvette's handwriting. Adrienne's mouth fell open. She sank to her knees, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. Jasmine placed a gentle hand on Adrienne's shoulder. I'm sorry you're hurt, Jasmine said, voice soft but firm. But this was my mother's plan. She knew you'd betray her, too. Adrienne's lips quivered. She looked from Jasmine to Alfred, confusion and anger warring on her face. I never wanted to hurt her, Adrienne sobbed. I thought I was helping him. Jasmine's eyes softened just a fraction. You chose to join his plan. Now you live with the choice. Adrienne's chest heaved with sobs. Alfred reached down, touching Adrienne's hand, but she flinched away. Her shock was too deep, betrayal cutting her more than any financial loss. Jasmine stepped back, allowing the two conspirators to face the aftermath alone. Adrienne rose unsteadily, wiping her tears with trembling fingers. She picked up the loan check, staring at the numbers as if they were a cruel joke. Alfred's shoulders slumped beside her. For the first time, Adrienne saw the weight of what they'd done. The betrayal of a dying woman, the theft of a legacy. Jasmine closed the vault door behind her, sealing away any hope they'd once held. Adrienne gasped, realization dawning that their lives had shattered in that single moment of revelation. Adrienne Coulter bolted from the conference room, her heels clicking wildly against the marble floor. She didn't look back. Every second she stayed felt like another layer of shame piling onto her chest. She burst through the bank's front doors into the busy lobby, ignoring stunned glances from clients and tellers. She needed air, space, anything to clear her head. Outside, the afternoon sky had darkened with gathering clouds. A storm threatened, mirroring Adrienne's turmoil. She fumbled for her phone and punched in a frantic text to Alfred. Adrienne, meet me at the car. Now, I can't do this anymore. I need a way. She hit send before tears blurred her vision. Her black leather purse thumped against her side as she hurried to the curb. The driver's car was still parked under the portico. Adrienne flung herself into the back seat, door slamming. She leaned forward, speaking between ragged breaths to the driver, "Take me home. No stops." The driver nodded, concern creasing his brow. The car peeled away from the bank, leaving behind the gilded promise of wealth that had withered to a sliver of cash. Adrienne stared out the tinted window as the city skyline receded, her reflection ghostly on the glass. She pressed her palm to her forehead, trying to hold herself together. Images of Yvette's calm, steely face on the tablet replayed in her mind. She blinked, willing them to stop, but they wouldn't. Adrienne's phone buzzed again. She glanced down at Alfred's reply. "Alfred, I'm coming." "Wait." Her chest tightened. She didn't know whether to feel relief or anger. Relief that Alfred still cared, anger that he'd dragged her into this mess. She didn't have answers, only heartbreak and the weight of her own ambition crashing down. The car sped through quiet avenues, leaving the bank district behind. Raindrops began pattering on the windshield, soft at first, then heavier. Adrienne watched the world outside blur, the city lights turning into streaks of gold and white. She leaned back, closing her eyes, as the storm broke overhead. Alfred Kingsley stepped out of the bank's revolving door into a sudden downpour. He hadn't bothered with an umbrella. Why shield himself from the rain when his own life felt soaked in ruin? His dark suit clung to him almost painfully as water streamed down his face. He cradled the folder of sealed documents under one arm and his phone in the other. He tapped the screen. No new texts from Adrienne. Just the last message, "I'm coming." Alfred exhaled a shaky breath and looked up at the glistening facade of Chesapeake National Bank. Once, this building had promised him fortune. Now it felt like a cage he couldn't escape. A taxi splashed through a puddle as he turned to hail one. He hesitated. Where was home now? His mansion felt empty without Yvette, cold without wealth. He needed a place to think. Finally, he flagged down a cab and climbed into the back seat. He gave the address of his city apartment, voice flat. The cab's heater blew warm air into the cramped space. Alfred sat rigid, listening to rain drumming on the roof. He thought of the $17,654 check resting in his inside pocket. That sum, laughably small, felt like more salt in his wounds. He closed his eyes, remembering Yvette's face in the videos, proud, sad, resolute. He leaned his head against the window, watching the city blur by. He thought of Jasmine, carrying forward her mother's legacy. He thought of Adrian, fleeing with tears and shame. And he thought of himself, betrayed by Yvette's love and outwitted at every turn. The taxi stopped outside his building. Alfred stepped into the lobby, shaking off the rain. Upstairs, he'd find an empty apartment, a pitiful check, and the weight of his own regret. He ascended the stairs, each step echoing his fall from grace. At the door, he paused, hand on the doorknob, bracing for the quiet that awaited him, alone with his thoughts, alone with the ruin of everything he once believed he deserved. Yvette Kingsley sat under the old oak tree in the park, her sketchbook resting on her lap. She had drawn Alfred Kingsley's sharp profile the day before, and now she waited for him to arrive. Alfred strolled up, hands deep in his coat pockets, a shy smile on his face. "Yvette, you've outdone yourself," he said, kneeling beside her. Yvette tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and showed him the drawing. "You look happier today," Alfred teased. Yvette laughed softly, closing the book. "Maybe I am." They talked until the sun dipped low. Alfred told Yvette funny stories from his law classes. Yvette listened, her eyes bright. When he finally offered his arm, she took it without hesitation. They walked along the creek, leaves crunching under their feet. Alfred paused by a wooden footbridge. He looked down at Yvette, heart pounding. "Yvette," he said quietly, "I don't want this to end." Yvette smiled, her breath catching in the cool air. "It doesn't have to," she whispered. He gently took her hand and pressed a kiss to her fingertips. Months later, Yvette discovered she was pregnant. She stood in the bathroom, hand on her belly, tears of joy in her eyes. She called Alfred immediately. "Alfred, I think I'm going to have a baby." Alfred's voice crackled with happiness over the phone. "That's wonderful news, Yvette. You're going to be the best mother." Yvette laughed, leaning against the sink. "I hope so." As Yvette's belly grew, Alfred built a nursery, painting the walls soft yellow. He assembled the crib piece by piece, humming a lullaby. Yvette watched from the doorway, feeling a swell of love and fear. She laid a hand on his shoulder. "Are you ready for this adventure?" Alfred turned, setting down his screwdriver. He smiled, brushing wisps of hair from her face. "With you, always." When Yvette slipped and fell one evening, Alfred carried her to bed and called the doctor. The cold reality of her illness settled in even as she clung to Alfred's promise. Alfred held her hand, promising to protect her and their child. Yvette closed her eyes, finding strength in his warmth. She vowed then to fight for their family no matter what lay ahead. Jasmine Sinclair was born on April 12, 2001, in a small Lagos hospital. Yvette Kingsley held her newborn daughter close, tears streaming down her cheeks. The nurses whispered words of hope, but Yvette's heart ached with fear. She placed a gentle kiss on Jasmine's forehead. "My sweet girl," she whispered, "I promise I'll come back for you." Because of her illness, Yvette decided to place Jasmine for adoption. She met with a private agency director in a quiet office. The director handed Yvette adoption papers. Yvette signed her name with trembling hands, scribbling a promise, "I will find her." She wrote a letter to Jasmine, sealing it in an envelope. "My dearest Jasmine, you are my greatest gift. Someday we will be together. Love, Mama." Each year on Jasmine's birthday, Yvette sent a letter to the agency. The agency forwarded the letters without revealing the sender. Jasmine grew up reading the elegant script that spoke of love and longing. She wondered about the woman who called herself Mama, but she felt the warmth in the words. She tucked each letter into a wooden box by her bed. As Jasmine reached 18, she sensed she needed to know the truth. On her birthday in 2019, she received a final letter with new instructions: contact the agency for details. Jasmine's heart pounded when she made the call. The director gave her Yvette's contact information. Jasmine flew to Lagos and met Yvette at a quiet cafe. Yvette's eyes brimmed with tears as she stood. "You're real," Jasmine whispered. Yvette wrapped her arms around Jasmine, hugging her tight. "You're mine," Yvette said. That day marked the beginning of their true bond. Jasmine learned about Yvette's battle with illness, her love for law, and her fierce determination. They spent that afternoon sharing memories: Jasmine's first words, Yvette's art sketches, dreams once deferred. Jasmine left Lagos holding the letter Yvette gave her. "Together, we'll make things right." Nurse Carla Dawson walked the quiet halls of the hospice late one night, her phone buzzing in her pocket. She slipped into Yvette Kingsley's room to check her vitals. Yvette lay pale beneath soft blankets, eyes closed. Carla gently took Yvette's hand, noting the faint pulse. As Carla stepped outside the room, a message popped up on her screen from an unknown number: "He's gone again." Carla frowned. She typed quickly back, "What do you mean?" A moment later, the reply blinked into view. "Alfred left you 5 minutes ago. He's meeting Adrian." Carla's heart lurched. She knew she should ignore it, but Yvette deserved to know the truth. Carla rushed back into the room, where Yvette sat up as if waiting. Yvette's eyes met Carla's. "What is it?" Yvette whispered. Carla hesitated before handing over the phone. Yvette read the texts, face turning pale with each word. Carla stood in silence, guilty but resolute. Yvette's lips pressed into a thin line as the nurse stepped back. That night, Yvette stayed awake, planning her next move. She opened a drawer and pulled out legal documents she had prepared in secret: trust forms, prenuptial amendments, letters to Jasmine. Yvette set her phone to record. Over the following weeks, Carla posted more texts, locations, times, whispered confessions from Alfred's secret life. Yvette watched every message, piecing together proof of betrayal. Every leaked text fueled Yvette's resolve. She met with Mr. Langston, drafted new wills, and recorded her final video message. Nurse Carla continued to send updates, unaware of the trap she helped spring. When the day came to activate her plan, Yvette closed her eyes briefly, then pressed send on her last set of instructions. The hospice room fell silent, carrying the weight of her secret victory. In a quiet corner of her city apartment, Yvette's lawyer, Mr. Langston, pored over the final drafts of her documents. He flipped pages detailing the Jasmine Sinclair Trust, the prenuptial amendment, and the new beneficiary forms. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across his polished desk. Mr. Langston paused to sip his coffee, then picked up his pen and signed each sheet in precise, confident strokes. Back at the hospice, Yvette Kingsley lay in bed, pale but resolute. Nurse Carla Dawson hovered at the bedside, awaiting instructions. Yvette handed Carla an envelope stamped urgent and said, "Take these to Mr. Langston today. No delays." Carla tucked the packet under her arm and promised, "You have my word." Yvette closed her eyes, imagining Jasmine's future safe in her daughter's hands. A few days later, Mr. Langston arranged a private meeting at his office. Jasmine Sinclair arrived, calm and composed, wearing a simple black suit and Yvette's wedding ring. Mr. Langston greeted her with a nod and laid out the completed documents on his dark mahogany table. Jasmine scanned each page, pausing at the prenuptial amendment and that final token payment amount. She nodded in approval. Your mother wanted everything airtight, Mr. Langston said. Every clause has been witnessed, notarized, and filed with the courthouse. Jasmine placed her hand over her heart, recalling Yvette's late-night work sessions, the legal textbooks strewn across the hospice table. She told me she needed to make sure no one could take this from us, Jasmine replied softly. Mr. Langston closed the file. All that remains is for me to deliver these to Chesapeake National, he said. They have strict protocol, but with your appointment as trustee, they'll obey your instructions immediately. Jasmine thanked him and left, clutching the folder as if it were made of gold. Later that afternoon, as Jasmine walked through the city streets toward the bank, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. But alongside it was a fierce pride. Yvette had entrusted her with more than money, she'd entrusted her legacy. Jasmine glanced down at the documents peeking from her bag and whispered, I won't let you down, Mama. Adrienne Coulter sat in her car outside a quiet cafe, the engine idling but her mind racing. Her hands trembled as she stared at the check for $17,654 in her purse. She pulled the paper out and smoothed it on her lap. Every crease felt like a scar. She thought back to the excitement she'd felt, champagne in hidden suites, Paris flights, a beachfront villa. Now those dreams lay in pieces around her heart. She dialed a number she almost hated to hear, Alfred Kingsley's mobile. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. Adrienne's voice cracked as she left a message, Alfred. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I can't keep living this way. Call me if you still want me in your life. She hung up and pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, willing tears to stop. Flashbacks of her and Alfred laughing in the back of the sedan, plotting their future, flooded her mind. She remembered the thrill of the guilty texts from Nurse Carla Dawson, the stolen glances at the bank, the soft pop of champagne bottles. Each memory now felt like poison. Adrienne realized she had betrayed a dying woman's trust, helped strip her of everything she'd worked for. The cafe's bell chimed as she stepped out of the car and into the drizzle. Adrienne ordered a black coffee and sat by the window, staring at her reflection in the glass, damp hair plastered to her forehead. She thought of Jasmine Sinclair, an innocent daughter caught in the crossfire. She thought of Yvette's quiet strength and legal genius. And she thought of herself, a willing conspirator in theft and betrayal. Adrienne sipped her coffee, tasting bitterness that matched her regret. She pulled out her phone again, composing a message to Jasmine. I know I don't deserve it, but if there's anything I can do to help undo this, I'm sorry. Adrienne hesitated, then hit send. Her finger trembled. She didn't know if Jasmine would reply, but she needed to try. Adrienne stood, leaving the coffee and her regrets behind in the cup's steam. She walked into the rainy street, head bowed, determined to live with the consequences of her choices, and maybe, somehow, find a way to make amends. Back at her modest apartment, Jasmine Sinclair laid the bank documents on her kitchen table. She brewed green tea and watched the steam curl upward in the morning light. Each envelope, each stamped paper was a testament to her mother's plan, a plan she now carried forward. Jasmine steeped her resolve alongside the tea leaves. She opened the first envelope, a checklist from Chesapeake National Bank confirming transfer of assets into the Jasmine Sinclair Trust. She ticked off each line, real property, transferred. Joint accounts, closed. Insurance policy, beneficiary updated. Jasmine felt a stab of sadness for Alfred and Adrienne, but she reminded herself that she was doing what Yvette would have done. Jasmine's phone buzzed. It was Mr. Langston, documents received. The bank sends its regards. You're officially the sole trustee. Jasmine texted back a quick thanks. Then she saw another message notification, Adrienne, I'm sorry. I want to help. Jasmine closed the message and took a steady breath. She remembered her mother's words, mercy, but protect what's mine. Jasmine typed back, thank you. If you're sincere, meet me at the bank tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'll discuss next steps. She hit send and felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Adrian could learn from this too. Jasmine poured her tea into a favorite mug and settled at the table. She thought of Yvette's calm voice in the video, the strength behind every legal line. Jazz. She made notes in her planner, schedule regular account reviews, arrange property maintenance, set up a small stipend for Alfred's token sum. She added an item, draft memo to beneficiaries explaining trust terms. Jasmine felt the weight of responsibility, but she also felt pride. Her mother had given her a gift stronger than money, the power to protect justice and legacy. Jasmine leaned back and sipped her tea. Outside, the city hummed with life. Jasmine knew challenges lay ahead, questions from curious neighbors, possible legal challenges, but she was ready. Yvette's legacy was in good hands, and Jasmine would guard it fiercely with both compassion and unwavering resolve. News of Yvette Kingsley's secret daughter and Alfred's downfall broke on every major platform by morning. Headlines screamed, betrayed widow's daughter seizes $2.1 million estate and husband outwitted at wife's own funeral. Social media buzzed with outrage and awe. Even late-night talk shows devoted monologues to the drama. Jasmine Sinclair woke to a flood of notifications, tweets, shares, and comments praising her mother's cunning and condemning Alfred's deceit. At Chesapeake National Bank, cameras formed a lineup in the lobby. Reporters pounded on the glass as Jasmine arrived in a simple black dress, ring still on her finger. Microphones thrust toward her face. Miss Sinclair, how does it feel to inherit your mother's estate? One reporter asked. Jasmine's voice stayed calm. My mother fought hard to protect her legacy. I'm merely honoring her wishes. Flashbulbs popped. Jasmine stepped into a waiting car, reporters' shouts fading behind her. Online, commenters debated the turn of events. Some called Alfred a villain, others lauded Yvette's foresight. A hashtag justice for Yvette trended worldwide. Jasmine scrolled through messages of support. That's what karma looks like, pure genius, and I'm buying flowers for Yvette's grave. Influencers reposted the scandal, urging followers to subscribe to coverage channels. At home, Jasmine watched a news anchor recapping key moments, Yvette's terminal diagnosis, the leaked Nurse Carla texts, the prenuptial amendment, and Jasmine's sudden appearance at the bank. The anchor's voice trailed off as he called it a story of betrayal, love, and ultimate justice. Jasmine closed the laptop and exhaled. Though her mother's story was now public spectacle, Jasmine resolved to keep the focus on Yvette's strength rather than Alfred's humiliation. Across town, Alfred Kingsley's name was mud. His email inbox erupted with angry messages from acquaintances. Former clients called to cancel retainers. The estate sale of his antiques was announced within hours of the news. Advertisements for cheap condos sprouted next to headlines about his eviction. Alfredo Coulter, Adrienne's career faced identical backlash. Local tabloids splashed her face on covers. Mistress exposed and partner in crime. By day's end, everyone in the city knew the tale. Jasmine sat at her kitchen table, sipping tea, humbled by the flood of empathy for her mother. She opened a new document titled Press Statement, determined to steer the narrative back to Yvette's legacy of love and justice. The public revelation had been swift and brutal, but Jasmine knew the real work, protecting the trust, had only just begun. Alfred Kingsley stood outside the ornate gates of his manor, a for sale sign hanging crookedly on the gatepost. His tuxedo from Yvette's funeral was stained with mud from his eviction, held briefly as collateral for unpaid taxes. He watched movers haul antique furniture onto a truck, each piece a memory turned liability. Alfred's pocket still held the $17,654 check, tucked inside a worn wallet, yet it felt more like final punishment than compensation. Adrienne Coulter arrived in a battered sedan, her professional image shattered. She climbed out, tying back her damp hair. The rain had soaked her suit, mirroring her despair. She approached Alfred hesitantly. "They sold my condo too," she said, voice hollow. Alfred turned away, clutching the check tighter. I can't help you." His words came out harsher than he intended, guilt and shame colliding. Adrienne's eyes filled. She looked at the moving truck, at the empty house that had once been a dream. Meanwhile, Jasmine Sinclair oversaw changes at the trust's properties. She hired a small team to maintain the manor until eventual sale and ensured funds from Alfred's token sum were set aside for his immediate needs. Jasmine faced questions from contractors, trustees, and the bank, each eager to know the future of the Kingsley estate. She handled every call with quiet confidence, guided by her mother's blueprint. On street corners, neighbors traded rumors of Alfred's fall from grace. Children asked their parents, "Is that Mr. Kingsley?" Passers-by gawked at his suit, as aristocratic as ever, now reduced to a cautionary tale. Adrienne's broken career meant she worked part-time at a small cafe, waiting tables and avoiding conversation about her past. Each plate she carried felt heavy with the weight of her choices. Both Alfred and Adrienne felt the sting of community scorn. They rarely crossed paths but shared a silent acknowledgement of mutual ruin. Alfred dug into the $17,654 to find a rundown apartment. Adrienne paid off one debt and considered moving back home to rebuild. They faced consequences far greater than financial loss: public humiliation and shattered trust. For Jasmine, the aftermath was a whirlwind of responsibility and unexpected compassion. She received letters from complete strangers offering support for Yvette's cause. She planted those seeds of kindness in a binder labeled gratitude. Jasmine knew the estate sale would free funds for charitable causes her mother championed. In the wreckage of betrayal, she found purpose. Leave your comments, perspectives, and lessons learned in the comments section below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with friends. Jasmine Sinclair knelt by Yvette Kingsley's grave beneath a gray sky. The marble headstone read, "Yvette Kingsley, beloved wife, mother, and protector of her legacy." Jasmine laid a bouquet of white lilies, her mother's favorite, at the base. She touched the wedding ring on her finger, feeling its smooth comfort one last time. She reflected on every step that brought her here: Carla's whispered texts, clandestine legal drafts, videos that exposed betrayal, and the final courtroom of public opinion. But most of all, she remembered Yvette's love, a love that outlasted illness, time, and deception. Jasmine whispered, "I have carried out your plan, Mama. Your legacy is safe." As she rose, cloud breaks revealed sunlight drifting through the trees. Jasmine straightened her shoulders, ready to honor Yvette's last wish. The Jasmine Sinclair Trust would fund scholarships for women in law, support hospice care in Yvette's name, and preserve the manor as a community heritage site, turning pain into purpose. Nearby, a small plaque commemorated Yvette's foresight. "Here lies a woman who outwitted fate itself to protect those she loved." Jasmine placed a hand over her heart. She glanced at the check for $17,654 tucked safely in her purse, a token of compassion, yes, but also a reminder: justice could be merciful yet firm. Jasmine stepped away from the grave, determination in every stride. She would manage the trust with integrity, carry forward her mother's passion for justice, and ensure Yvette's story inspired others to stand up for what's right. As she walked to her car, sunlight finally broke free, illuminating her path forward. Leave your comments, perspectives, and lessons learned in the comments section below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with friends.